So our third speaker is Deniz Omer from Cyprus, and can I welcome you on stage? He is a tech evangelist at Kyber network, and he will be talking to us about the growth trends from a liquidator protocols perspective. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, so my name is Deniz Omer and I'm the tech evangelist for Kyber network. So some of you might know Kyber network as a decentralized exchange, but it's actually so much more than that. We're integrated into so many different wallets and exchanges, decentralized financial applications and gaming. And you might think, well, what's Kyber doing in all these different kind of applications? And I'll just give you a few use cases. We're basically allowing any application that needs a value exchange to do it through swapping almost seamlessly. So if you're a wallet and you're an end user, usually you'd have to send your tokens to a different exchange, right? If you want to swap from one token to another, you'd have to send it to Binance, for example. You'd have to wait for confirmation, put an order, wait for that order to execute before you can then withdraw. When you integrate with Kyber, you can just do it seamlessly within the wallet. You just press a button and that's it, you've converted it. If you're a merchant, event organizer, real estate platform, when you're receiving tokens as payment for something you've sold, for example, you can receive that in stable coins without having to worry about, oh, I've received 20 different tokens, now I have to manage that liquidity. So you can receive stablecoin like DAI, True USD, regardless of what the user has paid in. And vice versa, if you're the user and you want to pay something, now you don't have to worry about, oh, do I need to pay in DAI? Do I need to pay in ETH? You just send whatever's in your hot wallet, and you let Kyber do that exchange, and the merchant receives it as a stablecoin. And if you're that, there's different use cases where you might be using this swapping functionality. If you're a fund, you might say, well, I want 40% ETH, I want 40% DAI, and 20% BAT, for example, in my portfolio, and with one press of a button, you can just let that happen, regardless of what volatility has taken place over the month. This lets you kind of rebalance with one click, and you're done. For DeFi dApps, we're talking about collateralization and over collateralization, and if you do get liquidated, you might want to exit to a position that's specific to what you need. You might want to exit to DAI if you had ETH, for example. So this gives you the functionality to just convert into whatever token you want. But the end result is, because we're integrated into so many different dApps, we kind of have a bird's eye view of what's happening in this space. With all these integrations, we can see which of these areas are expanding and which of these areas maybe aren't showing that much momentum growth. And that's what my talk is about today, just to share with you some insights that we're seeing in this space. And if you look at the largest group over there is wallets with 21. And it's not really surprising because wallets are the primary tools with which we control our assets. So it's kind of like a natural extension, having this in-app conversion that I showed before. It's almost like a natural extension to those wallets' capabilities. And when you think about it, how does a wallet convert using Kyber? There's two different ways. So one way is to just do a direct integration with the on-chain smart contract or use an API. And then another one is just accessing Kyber, providing basically a Web3 environment like a browser that accesses Kyber Swap. And I mean, just know we don't include that browser just because it's that browser in our stats unless there is some kind of volume coming through. And if you see the last 30-day volume going through the Kyber smart contracts, you'll see that wallets make up quite a large portion of that volume coming in. Token, which is like the largest wallet, is the second largest token swapping entity on Kyber after Kyber Swap itself. Engine, Trust, Mu. And if we look at the trends over time, we're seeing that since we integrated, we're seeing quite a bit of growth. I mean, this is just the last quarter, but we can see a doubling or tripling of numbers. And sometimes we're thinking, well, why is this happening? We don't have access to the off-chain data, like how many times wallets were downloaded, but we think it's correlated with what's been happening in that space as well. Because we know when it comes to wallets, there's huge competition between all the different wallets. There's huge competition to grab that market share. So we know, for example, well, if you look at the 3-4 most popular wallets, we know that, for example, Engine Wallet somehow managed to get itself onto the Samsung Galaxy phones. You know, that's huge exposure. Or if we say IM Token, introduced hardware wallet, introduced biometric verification, ERC-721 support. Mither Wallet introduced off-ramping from crypto to fiat for KYC-less as well. Trust Wallet introduced on-ramping with credit card purchases. So we're seeing, well, and Burner Wallets as well. We know like all the developments happening there. So we're pretty happy with what's happening in the wallet space, and we're happy that it's actually reflecting in our on-chain data as well. You know, Kyber's been growing thanks in part to wallets. The second category is DeFi products, and this is another area that we're seeing huge growth in. If you guys have seen the DeFi Pulse stats, the number of Ether locked up has grown exponentially. I think right now it's like $500 million worth of Ether is locked up in these contracts waiting to be used as collateral and to be loaned out. We're also seeing, a number of DeFi dApps have exploded. As you can see, this is the space. This is back in 2017, the seeds were planted for all these dApps, and finally we're seeing them go into production, and we're seeing quite a bit of use, quite a bit of interest around this area. And I'm just going to share two, well, actually, I'll share three. Two of these here. Well, Neo Lending, for example, is a non-custodial leveraged margin trading app. And what's crazy about it is it has 1.7 million locked up, but they only released like 6-7 weeks ago. So they've seen explosive growth, and they're already in the top 10 Kyber using apps right now. And EA Swap and InstaDApp, this was created by the Jain brothers. They won the ETH Bangalore hackathon. And they've been building dApps around Maker. And as you can see, the trends, that has been increasing over the last quarter as well. And just the last example I'll give from DeFi is Eunice WAP. I mean, most of you might know how explosive that growth has been and how much is locked up in Eunice WAP. And I like to give it as a good example of what happens when different permissionless products come together to create something that benefits both the end user and the projects and the ecosystem as a whole. Because Uniswap is permissionless, so we plugged all of Uniswap's liquidity into Kyber network, which means that all those dozens of different dApps integrated into Kyber can now make use of Uniswap's liquidity as well. So, for example, if a trade needs to happen, if a dApp needs to convert DAI to ETH, for example, if Uniswap provides the best price out of all the liquidity providers, then Uniswap gets to fulfill that trade. So users benefit because they're having access to a much larger pool of volume, and therefore, because there's price competition between all the different liquidity providers, the price drops and you have tighter swaps. And on the other hand, Uniswap benefits because suddenly now it has access to every product that's integrated with Kyber. Instead of just a Uniswap interface, servicing its users, it now gets to benefit from, being plugged into this ecosystem. And Uniswap actually gets 40% of its volume from Kyber's dApps, and it's the second highest liquidity provider for Kyber. So we're very happy to see this explosive growth in DeFi dApps as well, and we're happy that this is reflecting in the data as well. And here's just some stats. I mean, since we integrated, I think like 2.5 months ago, 15,000 trades for Kyber have been fulfilled by Uniswap, and that equals to about $12.9 million worth of trades, which is pretty impressive. The third area where we're seeing kind of growth and growing momentum is with merchants and event payments, because if we think about it, being able to pay for conventional products with crypto is going to be kind of a driver of adoption. If we're saying these are all mediums of exchanges, they're so easy to use, we want to make that happen. And we'd say that Ethereum is kind of, even though it's slow, it's still kind of a viable 1.0 payment platform. And we want to see Kyber provide the liquidity in this platform. And there's this kind of notion of, this eating your own dog food where you use what you build. And if you were at ETCC, for example, you could have bought your tickets. Actually, for EDCON as well, if you wanted to buy your tickets, you could have paid with any ERC20 token in your hot wallet, and the conference organizers would have received it as DAI. So they don't have to worry about the volatility, and you don't have to worry about what you're going to pay in. And we sold almost 100 tickets for ETCC. I think the most popular ones, as you can see, is ETH, DAI, Status, and RCN. Again, Wise Pass as well is if you're in Southeast Asia and you want to pay for a dinner or a cinema ticket, with any ERC20 token in your wallet, you can do that again with ETH, with wrapped ETH. I don't know why people are using wrapped ETH, but they're using it for payments as well. And this is, and the last example is our really ugly Kyber shirts, where again you can buy with any token you want. And this is kind of a push we're going for, where we want to make any token usable anywhere when you're buying something. So, okay, when it comes to DApp usage, I mentioned how in the wallet space we've been seeing doubling and tripling of usage. In DeFi dApps, we're seeing huge increase of locked up ETH, and merchant payments. We're going for a push there. But when it comes to DApp usage, it's kind of a different picture. We're not seeing much usage there. The numbers aren't really significant enough, to kind of, the stats aren't really visible there. And it's kind of a shame, but we're not really worried right now, because we know that, it's a bit of a cliche, but we say that crypto is like in the 1993 era of the internet. And it really is like that. User interfaces are very, very clunky. The user experience is very slow, so there isn't that much. It's still early days. I don't even know if we're at 1.0, but we're not seeing too much, DApp usage within the space. But I know that in a few years' time, in 3-4 years' time, once we have layer 2, and if I'm giving the same stats again in like a couple of years' time, I'm sure it's going to be a very, very different picture. I'm sure it's going to be so much more positive than what it is today in the early days. So I'll just sum up my speech real quick. So we're seeing an increase in Kyber usage, and this is for the last 6 months. And this increase is led by, our wallets doubling or tripling, increasing DeFi dApps. Well, not only increasing DeFi dApps, but the actual numbers loaned and the actual numbers locked inside. So with that integration, we're seeing those numbers reflect in our stats as well. We're seeing increasing momentum in being able to pay for conventional products in crypto, and that's another exciting space, and we're glad to see those numbers increasing gradually as well. But we're not really seeing DApp usage in not just our smart contracts, but in general, because I do a bit of biz dev and work on integration with Kyber as well, and I've literally looked at hundreds and hundreds of dApps, but we're not really seeing the usage there. But as I said, we're not really worried about that, because when we come to all these conferences, we see what everyone is working on, and we see how passionate people are, and we see how smart people are. So this is more of a short-term, I think 1 or 2 year problem before we do get that momentum for adoption. Thank you.
So thank you so much. That's actually very interesting. I just wanted to see that your very last comment was that you think that in a year or two's time, you'll see mass adoption. Sort of what's the projected growth rate do you think you'll see in decentralized exchanges?
I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, when it comes to dApps specifically, we don't know when there's going to be that inflection point. It could be something like CryptoKitties was almost like a breakout, but then we need a couple more of these, and they maybe have to be more serious, or I don't know what needs to take place. Mm-hmm. But 1 or 2 years, just a hopeful prediction. I'm just thinking at some point there is going to be a breakout, there is going to be a dApp that catches on, there's going to be more awareness. Maybe it'll come with layer 2, maybe it'll come with, we're not sure what, but it is going to happen. So
without putting you on the spot, let's say what are the 2 things that need to sort of improve on, or what do people need to work on for that to sort of grow?
I think one of them is kind of onboarding from the conventional world, let's say, to crypto. So it's easy to actually just find yourself in an environment where you can use crypto without having to worry about having to back up seeds and where you're going to buy your crypto from. We just need to make that as seamless as possible.
It's like a UX problem.
Yeah, pretty much a UX problem. And then in terms of speed, if you do need speed, I guess there is layer 2 solutions that kind of can take that pain point off, and that's going to be another point.
Thank you so much, Deniz.
Thank you.
Thank you.